Imagine it's 1965. You're 18 years old, fresh out of high school with your whole life ahead of you. Maybe you're thinking about college, a job, maybe even getting married. But hanging over everything like a dark cloud is a single piece of paper. Your draft card. This wasn't just a hypothetical fear for millions of young American men. It was their reality. This is the story of the draft and how the Vietnam War didn't just shape a generation, it fractured it. Before Vietnam, the draft was almost a rite of passage, a part of American life since the Civil War. During World War II, it was seen as a patriotic duty, a unifying force. But Vietnam was different. This was a war fought on television screens, a conflict many couldn't find on a map, and for reasons that grew murkier by the day. Suddenly, the draft wasn't a symbol of unity, it was a symbol of division. The system itself felt like a game of Russian roulette. It was run by local draft boards, groups of neighbors, and community leaders who held the power of life and death in their hands. Deferments were the golden tickets. If you were in college, you could get a student deferment. This created a glaring inequality. The sons of the wealthy and connected often went to university, while working class kids, particularly from minority communities, were disproportionately sent to the front lines. The system seemed to reward privilege and punish poverty. It wasn't just a draft. For many, it was a poverty draft. Then, in 1969, they tried to make it fairer with the draft lottery. Picture this, a televised drawing, 366 blue plastic capsules, each with a birthday inside. Your future was literally the luck of the draw. If your birthday was picked first, you were almost certainly going to Vietnam. The lower your number, the higher your chances of being called up. Young men across the country huddled around their TVOs, their hearts pounding with every number announced. For some, it was a sigh of relief. For others, it was a death sentence. The lottery may have seemed random, but it did little to heal the deep sense of injustice. Faced with this reality, young Americans had to make an impossible choice. Some answered the call, believing in their duty to their country. They went to Vietnam and faced the horrors of jungle warfare, fighting a determined enemy in a brutal and confusing conflict. Many returned as heroes, but they came back to a country that was deeply divided, a country that didn't know how to welcome them home. They carried not just physical scars, but the invisible wounds of war, struggling with what they had seen and done. Others decided they couldn't or wouldn't go. This wasn't cowardice. For many, it was a profound moral and political decision. The anti-war movement swelled, fueled by a generation that refused to be silent. They burned their draft cards in public acts of defiance, a symbolic middle finger to the establishment. They marched in the streets, chanting, "Hell no, we won't go." These protests weren't just about avoiding the draft. They were about questioning the war itself, challenging the government's authority, and demanding a different future. And then there were those who took the most drastic step of all. They fled. Tens of thousands of young men became draft dodgers, escaping to Canada or Sweden. They left behind their families, their homes, and their country, choosing exile over a war they believed was immoral. They created new lives abroad, but they were forever men without a country. Their connection to home severed by a single, irreversible choice. They weren't criminals. They were political refugees in their own minds. The draft also had a profound impact on those who weren't even eligible. Women. They were sisters, girlfriends, wives, and mothers. They watched the men in their lives get sent away, their worlds turned upside down by a lottery number. Many joined the anti-war movement, becoming powerful voices for peace. Others served in Vietnam themselves, as nurses in field hospitals, witnessing the carnage of war firsthand. They were an integral part of the story, their lives and futures inextricably linked to the fate of the men being drafted. The Vietnam War officially ended in 1973. The draft was abolished, replaced by an all-volunteer military. But the scars remained. The war and the draft created a deep and lasting credibility gap between the American people and their government. Trust was shattered. The divisions it created within families, communities, and the nation as a whole took decades to even begin to heal. For the generation that came of age during Vietnam, the draft was more than just a policy. It was a defining moment that forced them to confront questions of life and death, loyalty and conscience, duty and morality. It shaped their politics, their relationships, and their view of the world forever. It turned sons against fathers, citizens against their government, and a nation against itself. The story of the Vietnam draft is a powerful reminder of how a single government policy can change the course of countless lives. It's a story of impossible choices, profound courage, and deep-seated inequality. It's a chapter of American history that we must never forget because its echoes can still be heard today in the debates we have about war service and what it truly means to be a patriot. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into our shared history.